Good evening and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our weekly Q&A. Tonight we're fortunate enough to be speaking with Peter Barr from Barr Peter's Working Dogs.
Peter will be picking who he thinks has asked the best question of the night, and they will win a bag of Enduro high-energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat. How you going, Pete?
Thank you, Phil.
Good, thanks, mate. And for our viewers that are watching tonight, you'll notice that we're actually just an audio, having a couple of technical issues there earlier. So we decided just to put up a lovely picture of Pete working away in his what looks to be his board shorts there, mate. Nice choice.
Yeah.
It's the Crocs for me.
I love the Crocs in the cattle yards. There's no better way. You can kick them off and get out of there fast if you have to, right?
We're in four-wheel drive, so you're already a good step in front.
That's it. You got to lock the hubs in. How was your day, Pete?
Yeah, very good.
What did today consist of?
I had a bit of play around with some young dogs this morning and all good. And yeah, had a pretty good day with them. Going pretty well for me. Pretty happy with them. So, yeah.
No, beautiful, mate. For people out there that may not know you, Peter, whereabouts are you located, and what do you do with yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm located. Home base is Pinaroo, South Australia. I travel around all around. Just a bit of contract. Livestock, doing schools, people out there get dogs.
Hey Pete, we just haven't got a great connection there, mate. What we might do, we might just reset it quickly and just get you to rejoin if that's okay, please.
Hey, yep, all good.
Thanks, buddy. You back with us there, Peter?
Yep.
That sounds heaps better too, mate. And your internet connection looks a lot better. So let's try that again, mate. Obviously Peter Barr, mate. Do you just want to let us know where you're from and what you do?
Yeah, I'm from Pinaroo, Australia. For my life. And livestock and buy and sell a few dogs and breed a few pups. With them.
You still with us there, mate?
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, mate. It was just a bit in and out there. We'll see how we go here. We're just going to ask a couple of our listeners for some feedback, see if they can hear us all right. Mate, where did your passion for livestock and working dogs come from?
Well, my dad was into it. He got into it in about 95. I was born in 92. I was like, about 3. I always had a little play. Got older, I just started pups, dogs more and more, and was brought up on the road doing trials and ended up getting my first I was 9. More, and when I was at school, that's all I wanted to do. But still doing.
I can't hear what he's saying.
No.
Try.
Mate, are you in the same place that we done our sound check yesterday?
No, I'm in. So I thought it was a lot better. I still got full service. Is that any better?
That's heaps better.
Yeah.
We couldn't. Sorry, we didn't get a word of that conversation, eh?
No, that's right. I've just fixed it. I know what it was. I thought for the video I'd have it standing up so you could see me and not holding it all the time and moving it. But now I'm not on that. I'll just hold it. That's fine.
That's cool. Look at you, dog worker, stockman, and IT consultant.
Yeah. Do we? You got it all, or do we want to go again, or we're right?
Nah, mate.
I might go again if that's all right.
Yeah, if you could.
Yeah, we should be
again,
right.
mate, just a quick introduction of yourself. That'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm Peter Barr from Pinaroo, South Australia. I've been into dogs all my life. My dad got into them when I was about 3, I think, and I started getting a little pup and playing with it around. And I kept my first one when I was 9. Come out of school in 2010, and now travel around doing contract mustering, penning up, insuring sheds, educating weaner livestock, doing schools, teach people how to get the most they can out of a working dog, and also a little bit of breed a few and buy and sell a few dogs too. So, yeah, always training and playing around with working dogs. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So, the passion come from the old boy?
Yeah, definitely did. He was into them and really enjoyed it, and I liked it and took it on. Did a lot of dog work with my dad, and learn off of other people too, and really enjoy it. Yeah.
Cool. Was there ever another option for you, mate, or it was always down that path?
I think if I wanted to, I could have made something else happen, but I've always enjoyed my dogs and focused on them. They've been the life for me, and yeah, through growing up, I've stuck with them, and yeah, it's been pretty good. Now 31, so yeah, the first one when I was 9, so I've been with them for a while. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, wow, beautiful, mate. And we noticed in your picture there, mate, you got a couple of Kelpies there. Is Kelpies your flavour?
Yeah, I've tried a couple of collies and that. At times, one of my best dogs was a border collie. But on the whole, I find there's a lot more consistency, and I seem to get along with the Kelpies a lot better. Not saying there's anything against any other dogs. If you like the dog and the dog suits you, and you're willing to put the time into it, you'll get somewhere with it if they're willing to work and that. But the Kelpies are a lot more consistent, I find, and yeah, I look for consistency in my lines and breeding, and yeah.
Beautiful, mate. And you get out and you do a few schools as well?
Yeah, I do. I have done plenty around all around Australia, really, and I think it's not about changing people, or my way ain't better than anybody else's. But what I've learnt myself and discovered, I find hopefully helps and gets a few other people on the right tracks. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how long have you been doing schools for?
Couldn't tell you exactly, but I think I did my first school in 2014, I think, down at Neil and Helen McDonald's. Yeah.
Yep. And so in that time, have you sort of noticed a change in the way people handle stock and dogs?
Yeah, I've noticed throughout the years, I guess, I think more people these days are in a rush to do everything. I think stock work's more gone that way. They like a dog to get in and make it happen there and then. But with livestock and dogs, they're animals, so I believe they need a bit more time to think. I like a calmer, slower, steadier dog, gets around their stock and pulls up and just leaves them think for time, let them work each other out. Patience is the most biggest thing with livestock and moving stock, I believe. And yeah, so if your dogs can get around there, just pull up and hold them, as long as they're not losing ground on them, as long as they're just holding them where they need to, and let the stock think and realise that they're beaten. And then when the stock are happy to go, the dog's got to be able to move them then and direct them where they want to. And the longer you take to get them in and spend time with them, the better they'll flow through your yards and the safer they'll be to work too in general. But it's all how you pick them up and how you work them from the start is how you'll get there with them in the future, I believe.
Do you think maybe we're not as you mentioned patience there? Do you think maybe we're not as patient these days as what we once were?
I think, I don't know, you hear the stories with all the people used to cruise around with just their one or two main dogs, and they used to cast their dog out and leave it out there for hours on their stock and move their stock around and be on mobs for hours before they do anything with them or to get them somewhere. Whereas these days everybody's got a vehicle or got a buggy or something, and so we tend to rush out around them, get the job done, and use our dog when we need to, and make everything in a hurry. Whereas I think it nearly need to go back into the job where you muster on foot and with a few dogs, and you've got to rely on them and give them time to think, so you can't interfere with them too much. A dog, they say, is equivalent to 10 people for working, and they just know where to be, and that if they're let do the right things. So a lot of us try and interfere and rush and do too much with them or get them to do extra instead of letting them think and letting the stock think. If the stock think, the old man always used to say running stock and never thinking. So if the stock has got time to think and work out whether to go, you can spear them and put them anywhere you want to with time, but it's the time you're willing to put into them to get them to where you want to. Yeah.
It's funny you say that quote from your old man. Nat and I were just, we were riding horses today, but we went for a ride over the weekend as well. And we're riding just down past a neighbour's place. He probably had a dozen weaners in his paddock. And the gates are open, like 4 paddocks, and they're open in the middle. So like they can run diagonals. Yeah. And we're going down one way with our horses, and we decided to do a U-turn and come back. And as we come back, the young weaners have just seen us, and they've come running through the paddock on the diagonal through the gates, and they've run straight up towards us and run straight into the fence.
Yeah.
And just hit them, just running towards us and just hit the fence. So just the merit there of what you said with running stock aren't thinking stock. That's a prime example right there, right?
Yeah, so I believe your dog's got to get around his stock. He's got to be able to hold his ground, get around and collect them, show that he's there. If the stock go to take him on, yes, he's got to be able to bite and defend himself or do what he's got to do in the right ways. But also when the stock are pulled up and looking at him, they've got to be able to build a trust. Well, I don't know, the old video growing up as a kid watching Babe with the pig and the sheep. It's so true when he goes around and talks to them first and explains who he is and that, and then they're willing to go somewhere, whereas everybody feels that the dog's got to get around there and go, I'm here, boo, you're going in there, if that makes sense, instead of, hello, this is who I am, let's get along and we'll go where we want to. Yeah.
So do you teach your dogs Barr Emu as well, mate? Or
no, definitely not. But I believe they know that naturally. I believe that is their sort of connection time with stock to think at the start. And I did a lot of goat mustering with the old man growing up as a kid, and there were times that you would think you're not getting anywhere. Dogs would be sitting around a mob of goats for 2-3 hours before he'd even move them. But then when they'd move and he knew the timing with them, and he'd go, right, they're ready, let's go now. And then you'd pen them. You'd move them wherever you wanted to, and you could put them where you wanted to. But till they worked that trust out with the dogs, you could spend an hour and only, or like I said, even 3 hours sometimes, and only move them 20 metres.
Yeah, bugger all.
Yeah, but once they worked out that they were beaten by the dogs introducing themselves and showing that they can't get past the dogs and that, then you could put them where you wanted and how you wanted. Yeah.
Kind of getting in their head, right? Kind of like a weigh-in for like a UFC or a boxing match.
Yeah, definitely.
They're just psyching each other out before they even
Yeah.
a couple of days before they get the gloves on, or not, or get in the cage.
Exactly, yeah. And I believe animals know a lot more than us, so we're only directing them. And so really, if we can let them think themselves and I got a big pattern with my dogs. I believe that your dog naturally, when you put your little pup around the mob, it brings them to you and holds your trainer mob to your chest. And they're comfortable with it. If they're short on getting to the head, they'll circle one side or the other side and not happily hold them to you. So I believe in always working on that theory that always turn your chest to where you want your stock, so your stock are happy to flow and travel with you, and your dog's happily, he knows where you want to go too. So yeah, there's a lot more in it than just putting the dog around them and trying to direct the dog too. So
Absolutely, mate. Like, we'll touch on trialing later, but that's a massive thing you see with new trialers, right? They're standing at a gate facing their dog, and they're balancing, and they're trying to get the dog off balance, and the dog's ramping up, and rather just turn the other way and put your chest where you want the stock, like you just mentioned.
Yep. And that certainly, gives your, if you can work out an understanding why you're playing around training your dogs and that where you want that stock from your own body, well, when you come to a spot where you can't move, or you get to a, I don't know, trying to push stock in a pen where you can't go the other side of the fence or something, well, you've got to be able to stay there and direct the dog. But if you've got a pattern that you're working on from a pup teaching a dog, I believe that it helps you in the future. Yeah.
Absolutely. Something else that you just touched on just before when we're talking was you believe you're just directing a dog around?
Yeah,
So,
I believe a lot of us are out there and trying to direct and tell our dog everywhere they want it to be. But if we can leave the natural work in the dog, as the old man always used to teach me, if the dog's in the right spot, be quiet and leave it be. Let it be, because why direct them if they're already there? Why confuse them? And just work with them rather than against them. That's the biggest secret to any animal in general, I think. Work with it and you'll get somewhere. But if you try and fight it and go against it, well, you'll put so much off too.
So you kind of, like, when you're moving stock, show them where they can go rather than where they can't.
Yeah. Big thing is pressure release. Of course, when the stock are going the right way, your dog should pull up and sit down and leave them. But why they're going the wrong way, well, yes, your dog's allowed to defend itself and hold its ground. I believe your dog's allowed to hit the nose, hit the head of an animal. That's their defensive spot. You don't see people going into a boxing ring with a set of handcuffs, do you? You know, so putting a muzzle on a dog is putting a set of handcuffs on a human. So I believe that long as your dog's taught where they can bite and where they can't bite, and long as when your dog goes and bites your beast or your sheep or whatever for going the wrong direction, when your sheep or your cattle turn around and go the correct direction, your dog should then leave them alone. That's the secret to biting. I can't stand dogs that bite the back end of a sheep when they're going where you want them to go. That's dirty in my eyes. But if they're hitting the nose that's coming out at them, well, they're defending themselves and they've got to have a spot where they can. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's unnecessary, right?
Yep. So...
and that's a great point that you put. You know, a lot of people look at bite and they go, bite, like particularly on sheep, and they're like, well, wait a minute, if that animal's coming towards the other animal, well, it's got to punch it in the nose to convince it to go the other way.
Exactly. I've seen a lot of dogs that have got a heap of bark in them. Well, yes, bark will work at times, and I've had some very handy dogs with it at times too. My main collie bitch was one of the best for it at times, but at the same time, whenever something knotted up and was too hard, when they and the sheep goes sulky, a bite will always move them if it's done right. But a bark, they will sulk and give up sometimes, especially some of them sulky old merino ewes. They'll just put their head in the corner and say, we're not going anywhere. But if your dog gets up and looks for that head and hits it in the right spot, well, they're going to go, well, we want to get out of here. Where's the open gate? Yeah. But the secret to it is when they do go the right way, your dog should pull up and sit down and leave them alone. That's where a lot of people, I believe, when their sheep go the right way, they put a bark on at the end and try and push them harder. But why not leave them go when they're going the right direction? Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
definitely.
point. Mate, you seem way too level-headed for this stuff. And talking about patience, and we're talking there obviously about, conducting your dog and working with. Mate, where do you see it in terms of, I hear so many people these days, and they're always talking about commanding dogs, and I look at it a bit different. Like, I'll use a command myself when a dog's blatantly being disobedient with what I want, but more so I find myself requesting, like asking my dogs to do things.
Yeah, well, it all starts. I start them all in a small training yard, about 4 panels by 4 panels square, roughly. I believe a square yard's good because you've always got a corner for footwork with your dogs. Rather than a round yard, you've got no corners for them to learn where to be and where not to be. So I'm in a square yard as much as I can. I don't like round yards. But in saying that, when your dog's going the right way or going a direction, you just say the command nicely and let them be. Say the command nicely and let them be. And the more you can talk to them in a positive way when they're doing the right thing, the better it is. They'll pick it up. And then you just got to learn to change that when they change and teach them that it is. And the biggest thing is at the end of every session with your dog is I call it, give them a bit of controlled free time. I'll walk around in the pen, just going for a little walk and let that pup balance up from the start as a little pup without saying nothing to it, and just let it still realise that it can do a job without me telling it what to do. So they still know how to work for themselves without getting directed all the time. I think collies are a bit more like to be told what to do all the time, whereas a Kelpie will think for itself. That's probably another reason why I lean more towards the Kelpies. But in saying that, yeah, dog's definitely got to be let be itself and work for itself with you in its mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
I don't like a dog out there on its own and doing its own thing and crossing between me and the sheep. People say crossing's a trialing thing, but crossing's actually probably the most biggest respectful thing with any dog. From the second that pup's switched on to its stock and happy, I never let it cross me unless I direct it to later in life when it's older. I don't mind a working cross if it's directed, but that takes a lot to teach that later. But little pups, so many people put a little pup in and let it just work up and down the fence and sit back and watch it and see what it's got. Well, in that couple of minutes of the first session doing that all the time, all that pup's doing is learning to work for itself and ignoring their owner. So why not try and be a part of it from the start and get your sheep off the fence out in the middle and just block them with a rake for an extension to your arm and just let them direct around the mob nicely and reward them for it.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, and a lot of people probably would never think about that.
Well, I learn by association, right? So the more associations I have that this is my show, or the more they believe it's my show.
Exactly.
Or their own show.
And if you can just block them that, no, you can't go through there, and then leave them alone when they do the right thing, it's not the pressure they want, it's the relief. So if you're putting just a little bit of pressure in before they get there, they don't want to come into that wall of pressure, so they'll turn away. And when they turn away, leave them alone and let them go, and they'll soon work out to turn off your body. And it's a good feeling when the animal's got you in its mind and you're working together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%.
You want to grab that question?
Yeah, there's a question here from Charles William. He's asked, as a dog trainer, livestock handler, how important do you think it is to go to different areas in the country to handle stock? And then on from that, do you think more handlers should expose themselves to different operations?
Oh, definitely. I think the more you can travel with them and do different things to them, you pull up in a spot on cattle and work your dogs there for a month or something, then you go and do something in a shearing shed and go to back and bark, that sort of thing, a little bit different, and then go back out and do some outside work on nose and goats or something. The more you can swap around and do things, your dogs, the more they pick up and learn to work with you. And I think, the more you can get out and learn yourself off of everybody and traveling around with different people, the better it is for yourself and for your dogs. Like there's so many good people out there that work stock and working with them. You always pick something up with somebody all the time, and it's a very good experience. Yeah.
And we've spoken a bit about dogs, but what do you actually like in a dog? That's probably one thing you haven't answered.
Yeah, okay. I really like in a dog. Number one thing is you've got to like the dog, and I think the pup will pick you too. The dog will pick you. If you don't like the dog, don't take it on, or don't set yourself up to have it in that situation. But if you like the dog, generally what you'll put into it, you'll get out of it if you're willing to put the time into it. There's, I guess every dog's different, every person's different. So you've got to try and find something suited to yourself, what you like, and work with it. And somebody might say they might not like that dog, but if you like it and you're willing to put your time into it, providing it's having a fair go for you, and only you know what you can bring out in it. So, yeah, it's up to you to do it.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. What was that, Daniel?
Yeah, that works well.
I look for a calm dog, calm in the head, easy to get along with, something that looks for me. And I generally get along better with dogs that I've brought up from little pups than I do with older dogs that I try and retrain or do things with that are older. I believe with a little pup, it's only going forwards. The less they know from others, the better it is. I like minimal done with my pups. You still got to play with them a bit and, do things with them, but minimal, less is more sometimes. Let them grow up, let them get a mind. I used to do a lot with my little pups and nearly have them trialling some of them at 10 months of age, whereas these days I'm more starting them, probably just starting to balance them up at 12 weeks on a training mob, and then just step them up as I go. Generally, as jobs come up and as things go, they step up to whatever situations come at them, and biggest thing is enjoy them and work with them rather than against them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Question here from Simon Brandenburg. He said, "Hi Peter, you are renowned for training dogs. No matter the dog's personality, no matter how hard or soft, it doesn't seem to matter." His question is, how do you go about putting a sit or a stop on a strong dog that fights you all the time? If we get this bit right, does that help in all aspects of the dog's training?
It does to a certain degree. I believe, like with my pups that I bring up myself, you can do it in normal sheep yards. You can put a sit on them as long as it's a dog-proof sheep yard. But older dogs that have come in that have learnt to get away with it, and that if you can get them, and I normally use those security panels around my training yard just so it's a bit dog-proof. And the thing is, I let them work, get them switched on. Then when I'm in position between them and the livestock, I'll try and block them and just get them to pull up like a horse to stand there. And as soon as they stand, I'll ask them to sit. If they don't, I'll apply pressure until they cave in and pull up and sit down. And when they do, the second they sit down, I turn and walk away and go to my stock and create a bit of movement and let them come back and have fun for sitting. So there's no pressure after they've sat until every time I ask them to sit, then they'll sit. And when they're comfortable with that, then I'll put a sit and stay on them. And once I've got that sit and stay on command, then I believe it's a massive, massive help for anywhere with work. If you got your dog that you can pull it up, provided number one is balance. They'll go around and block up the mob and bring them to you. Number two is sit. If you can pause your dog when you need to, you're halfway there. And then the third thing is a call. Dog must come at all times from once you put a call onto it, which is step 3 after the sit. And therefore, you can nearly start taking them and doing a little bit of a job with them. But if you haven't got any of them 3 things, you're in a bit of strife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you spoke about like starting a square yard, mate. What age did you have age in particular like to start them, and what kind of stock would you use?
Or as a training mob, whether it be sheep or goats, generally they'll flow pretty well. You can push around and move around. You can do it with little calves, but you've got to be careful that you don't get kicked. And you've also got to be careful of the puppet, a small puppet. You can start a puppet, or some little pups you can start at 5-6 weeks. They're into gear looking, but I generally by 12 weeks, if they're not switching on, I like them switching on by 12 weeks. Otherwise, they don't generally become keepers in my team. I like, providing I've given them a few opportunities around that 10 weeks onwards to switch on. But by 12 weeks, they should be switched on and looking and keen. And then it's what you put into them, you'll get out of them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, would you put much time aside to train, like away from work, or would you do a bit of it on the job?
It depends what jobs are coming up. In the shearing shed, and penning up in those 8-10 stand sheds, you can get away with just getting them balancing up before they go, and the rest can nearly come in the sheds with a couple of older dogs and one pup at a time. But if you're going out mustering and that, well, obviously you'll need a bit more trust in them that they can work away from you in a bit longer distance, and they'll understand a bit more of a sit in a call properly and that before you can get them outside. So every dog's different, and every dog handles different timing of training too. Some dogs might switch on with their training levels and step up pretty quick from 12 weeks. Other dogs might switch on and you'll see enough in it that you like it, but it might be more 6 to 8 months before they can really handle that bit extra. But every dog's different. But if there's enough in them, you'll work out what time to put it into them, and yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just lost my question.
Something that I believe, there's never a time limit on training a dog. If you put a time limit on it, that's when you blow them up in the mind. Because you think you got to get it by then, all of a sudden you put too much on them, you blow them. But if you just go with the dog, go with the flow, go with what opportunities you got coming up with the stock work, and yeah, the rest comes. Yeah.
Actually, speaking about that, you mentioned before that you do like to have your dogs younger. You've probably had more success and building more of a relationship. Those dogs that you have got older that somebody has blown up in the mind, how do you find they ever come around like all the way around? And do you change your process in the way you approach those particular dogs?
Yeah, you just got to read it with each dog. Each dog's different. But they'll come around if you're willing to put your time into them. But generally, you've got to go backwards with them before you go forwards, and you've got to take a bit of rules away from them they've been getting away with throughout their life previously. So therefore, you sort of lose a bit of connection with them. And once you lost a connection with them, it's hard to re-pick that back up. Yes, it can happen, but you've got to, then I guess it's up to them to be a bit more natural, and they've got to prove a bit more that they're worth finishing off into that more likeable dog. I'm a bit of a believer of, if you got something that you like better, well, put your time into that and enjoy it, because you'll go further than put your time into something that you're not liking. There's always someone out there that the dog will suit, though. At the same time, you still got to set it up right to get it right for the person that it will suit. And not everybody likes the dogs the same as me. So there is somebody that will suit that dog, but it's finding the right person and still getting them to the best you can to how the dog will handle it too.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And you've mentioned a bit about like penning up and whatnot. Do you like to work your dogs in a race, or do you prefer to get them on an outside of a race so you're not knocking them up as much?
I'm a big believer on the dog should be in there all the time. I think if your dog's outside the race, that's when they learn to sneak a bite through the rails, and that's when they learn they can't get to the nose. Well, what can they do? Oh, they'll hit the side. I believe that outside of the race teaches a lot of dogs to be natural dirty. I like to pick a natural clean dog anyway, and you can still make a natural clean dog become dirty, or you can still make a dirty dog be clean. What you put into it, you'll get out of it. But at the same time, I believe if the dog's in there, all the race is a small version of a paddock, but your dog's got to go back underneath them or over top of them. And if your dog learns to stay in there all the way through, and that's where I believe in a lot of bite in a good way. I can't be bothered reaching in and trying to turn a sheep around in a race. So I call the dog up to the front and get a hold of him, hit him on the top of the head until it turns around. And when it does, leave it alone and go back and keep him flowing. Whereas if you get in there and do that all the time, every time something turns around, well, nothing worse than a dog coming up barking at it, because that's all it'll do is make it cave its head in under its mates and hide there more. So if your dog comes up and finds that top knot and turns it around and stays in there and goes back through the rest of them, generally you'll get a flow if it's done right. So, yeah, I like a dog in the yard all the time. Even some of my older dogs that I've trained previously, I used to have them, I'd send them around a mob of cattle in cattle yards, and they knew they couldn't go out the rails because they knew if they went out the rails, they were in strife. That's a fence is a fence. So, yeah, unless I asked them to get over. And in that situation, I might ask them to get over to go out and collect another mob. But on the whole, the mob that they're working is a mob in the yard, so they should be in there with it. The only reason they shouldn't be in there with it is if I haven't asked them to, or the pen's too tight, and you shouldn't put a dog in there with tight cattle where a dog could get hurt either. So generally, in saying, as long as there's enough room for the dog to get around his stock comfortably, he should be in the same pen. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned there about sending dogs out, mate. Have you got a particular casting action you like to see or that you encourage?
It all starts in that small little training yard. If you don't let them cross between you and the sheep from a little pup, and let them get right around the mob and bring the mob to you all the time. All the big paddock is the same as a small little yard if it's worked right. So if they're never allowed to cross you as a little pup there, and then the next steps are bigger yard, and all of a sudden you're in a small paddock, and all of a sudden you're in a big paddock, and it just starts by giving them opportunity to cast further and further each time, to eventually you can cast them. Yeah, teach them to look and search, and that starts off as, you might know some stock are just over a hill, or just in the scrub, and they'll pick them up from there. So send them and teach them to look, and all of a sudden they get further and further. I know I've had a couple of dogs on a GPS tracking collar casting out on goats, and I've had them up to 9 Ks away before, I think 11 Ks away. I could be wrong in saying that, but I know I've definitely had one to 9.3 or something. A dog called Charger, and you could leave him on a mob overnight and let him think and just sit on them and break him in, and he'd stay there as long as he needed to. So if you do things right and train them from a little pup and teach things the correct same way as if it's a mini version of the big paddock you're trying to muster, well, you should be able to send them in time as far as you need to, within reason. Yeah.
Yeah. When you know that they're ready to come out of that smaller pen, though, like you mentioned, having the right job to take them and all the rest, but say training purposes, what's your do they need to meet a certain thing before you go, okay, you're ready for a larger yard?
Okay. Good call on that. If you put them into a pen and everything's going right in the training yard, the small little square yard, and everything's going right, well, maybe next time, once you've done that a couple of times and it's all good and they're comfortable with it, we'll try and step up. But if you've still got little hassles with them in that little area, well, they're obviously not right there, so they're not going to be right further out, if that makes sense. So biggest thing is I believe it's all like a ladder. That's your first step of your ladder. If you can climb up that and get that right, well, maybe go to the next step. But if you can't get up the first step, well, how can you go to the second step?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just got to, when you feel comfortable and you feel that you got it as good as you can get it and as good as you would like it in that yard, you go to the next size. So not everybody has to have them perfect and to A-grade quality and A-grade training in that. As long as you're happy with it and they're not going to go backwards with the next step, well, have a go at it. Yeah, you've got to give them an opportunity to succeed too. So many people have had one good dog and it's been a real good dog from a pup, and they brought it up, they've done everything with it, carted it around and gave it every opportunity they could, and it turned into a cracker. But then they got another pup the next year, and all of a sudden for 8 years in between, them pups were no good. But the 10th one that come along, the old dog died, so they've got the 10th pup there on its own, and they bring it up. They've got no other dogs to rely on. They've got to rely on that pup, and that becomes a cracker. Now, is it because the first one and the 10th one were good and the 8 in between were no good, or was it because an 8 in between never got an opportunity to succeed? And I think that's the biggest thing. They've got to have an opportunity to succeed within reason of
Absolutely.
Getting it correct. So that's the big thing I believe in.
You're investing more time in that particular dog, right? Because you don't have Old Faithful to turn back on.
Yeah, I've found I used to get a few bombings from a few trainers in a good way that, why do you sell your old dogs, your main dogs? But when I'd sell them, the others would step up pretty quick and I'd go, wow, you've got another team there. That was because I was relying on those old dogs all the time. But once they're not there to rely on, the work's still got to be done. Well, the new dogs step up and learn where to be and away they go too. So, yeah, and it's a bit tricky. I used to think, oh, the older dogs, I'd leave them home and spell them, save them for trialling in schools and make these younger ones step up. But the older dogs still need that real work experience to keep their mind right. Otherwise, they can shut down pretty quick once they retire too. So there's a fine line with keeping them all right in the mind too for work too.
Or the next time you bring them out, they want to run a muck on you like they've never seen stock before.
Oh, not so much that. The more so they get laid back and switch off into holiday mode, they can very easy. Those older dogs that aren't keeping sharp through going to work all the time. It's amazing how much their mind changes when they're not doing that real work and they'll just lay back and they don't go fizzy and silly and flat out. They just lay back and get a bit slower at times, but that's what happens when you pull up. So I think you just got to find that balance of keeping that work on with them, but also spelling the older ones and keeping the young ones coming through is the most important thing with any team of anything these days. If you haven't got young up and comers, whether it be a team of footy or whether it be working dogs, you haven't got a team in the future. So you've got to make sure you look after your pups and you got to always have young ones coming along.
Yeah. And on that note, do you want to tell us a little bit about your current team?
Yeah. At the moment, I've got a pretty young team. I've got a team there that are all under 2-year-old at the moment. Well and truly, probably. No, I'd say there's 2 there at about 2 there at 12 months, and 2 there at about 10 months. There's another one. Oh, there is one there that I brought back at the moment that's about 4. Apart from that, all mine are, young dogs and coming into a team or coming in looking for that real work experience and just about to step up. So I'm pretty happy with my new team at the moment. But, they're just lacking probably a bit of experience, but that'll come pretty quick. All the training's on them. They're just ready to get out and do the real work and step up.
Yeah.
Have you got any particular lines that you find suit you yourself?
Yeah, I've stuck with a lot from what I was handed over at the start from my father, but at the same time I've gone and got different blood. I got a dog from Matt Webb years ago down at Kippacoot, stud, which was near Casterton. I got one from a dog from Joe Spicer. I've tried a few different ones at times, and I don't know, it's just what suits you. But I've used a couple of Neil and Helen's. I'm trying to think of his name, Nelson, and I've got some good young stuff coming along. I'm pretty happy with, and you just got to keep trying different stuff. And I look for a nice, calm outside work in my dogs, and that's the most important thing for me, with still a bit of walk-up strength. So, it's tricky to find because I think a lot of people are going more for the pushy, thuggier type dog that they like to get the job done straight away, whereas they nearly drive me insane. I'd rather a dog take its time and work with it rather than be on its case to pull it up all the time because they just want to be pushy. So it's all part of working out what you want, and that's what you've got to pick when you're picking pups too. So and working with it,
Yeah.
What are you looking for in your own line, mate?
Every dog you can put a stop on that if you're willing to put the time into it. But I like a dog that naturally stops itself and leaves the stock alone when they're flowing and that. So I'll look for something to go out and get around his stock and work with them, and just work with them when the stock are coming to you. Sit down and leave them alone, and when they're going away from you, cover and hold your ground and defend yourself and put a bit on them if they have to. And as soon as they leave you and come towards me, leave them alone. And that's the biggest secret to any livestock work and dogs that I find. You'll get somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned like you do move your older dogs on to bring your young ones through. Are there any old dogs though that you wish you did have, like that you could have back after you've sold them?
I sold a couple, Poison and Gemma, to Vinny O'Loughlin years ago, and I actually brought them back when he went out of dogs.
Yeah.
And I bred a bit with Poison again and kept him going through them. I have had a couple that got old and passed on. Yes, you could definitely have them, but I've got enough of their lines back there, and it's what you put into them. You've got to move forwards. So yes, you've got to keep your own lines and keep it going, but at the same time, you've got to move forwards and step up with it too. There's a lot of good dogs out there. It's just finding the right ones and working with them. And yeah, you've got to. I believe as a breeder, if you're buying an outcross pup in, I believe go and buy 3 from different studs and play with them, bring them up to how you would like them, and therefore surely you'll get one out of it. If you don't, you do it again, but until you get something that you like and you keep that and you breed with it. Whereas a lot of people go and get one little pup and go, well, that's what I've got, we'll put the time into it, we'll make it into something, and what we got's what we got. Well, if they're not quite there naturally, well, you're going to breed with it and you're not breeding what you want. So I'm a big believer, try a few extras to keep the door open. If you end up with 3 crackers out of it, well, you've got 3 different ways, haven't you? But if you don't, well, you hopefully should still get one way.
No, absolutely. And you can't breed training, right?
No, well, you can. Yeah, you can breed them that are good to train and pliable and that, but you can't breed natural ability, no. You can't train natural ability, sorry. That's all I'm breeding. So it's what you put into them, you'll get out of them if you get the right pups. But you've got to be able to breed the right pups, yeah.
Absolutely, mate. And you mentioned there earlier about there's plenty of good dogs around. Have you seen a dog that you wish you'd like to inherit? Like you'd go, geez, I'd like to have that one in my team.
I think if they're there, you use them for outcross. I used to think that as a kid growing up, I'd love that in my team, but everybody trains them a little bit different in how they like them, and if they like it and it suits to them, well, yes, they might do things a little bit different. I might not like that dog as much in my team, but I'd like a pup bite, So I don't know. Everybody likes what they got. I'm not saying I wouldn't take any dogs on off of anybody else, but yeah, I believe there's probably a lot out there that I'd like to have had from a little pup, but not so much take on and continue on with them. I believe as a trainer myself, I like to bring them up how I like them, so I get them, to understand me and work with me, and I think it's better connection the whole way through, yeah.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah. And so you're doing everything with your dogs, but what does a solid all-rounder look like for you?
Well, they've got to be able to switch from sheep to goats to cattle, backwards and forwards, whatever you want. They've got to be able to hold them. Number one, they've got to be able to get around the mob correct and hold them together. Cover and hold. Number two, they've got to be able to have enough strength in them to move the stock when the pressure is required, and they've got to be able to take the pressure off them then when they do move the stock. And then also they've got to be able to get in and back and top knot, I believe, and a little bit of walk up strength. I'm not 100% on bark. They don't have to be able to bark. In fact, I'd rather them keep silent if possible. So I look for plenty of good clean nose bite. I actually like a little pup that when you put them in a race and you've got all tails of the sheep to the dog, facing towards the dog, and I like the pup that'll climb up on the back of the sheep and start nibbling at the back of the ears and the head, or look for the nose. I find that's a good clean pup. That's what I'd pick to keep and breed from, rather than a pup that's at the back that'll start barking at them or hitting the back leg and having a bit of a chew. That's so I look for that dog that's always looking for the nose and looking for the head, and that's what I really, really look for and stands out to me with calm mobility. Yeah.
And are you breeding many pups?
Yeah, I would say 2 litres a year roughly at the moment. Have previously, I think 2013 or something, 2014, I bred a heap. I did again in 2019. I bred, I think, 5 litres or something at once and really enjoyed it. But I think more so these days, just breed 1 or 2 litres and keep them all myself and get them all switched on and work with them. If my quality's good enough, I should be able to, turn any of them into what I want to and, focus on my own line more so. Yeah.
So you're breeding more for like yourself when you need something. Like, are you identifying like a hole in your team, or are you looking at dogs and going, well, this dog's at a particular stage in its career, I should be bringing something else underneath it now?
Yep. Well, I was trying, breed for what you want yourself, what you're wanting, and I believe if we can keep our pups up to that switched on stage and get them keen and switched on properly and balancing up, well, then we know what the pup's like. When somebody asks you for a pup, well, you know roughly what it's going to be like, and you can talk to the person about what they're looking for, and you should be able to suit a dog or suit a pup to a person. Whereas when they're little tackers and you're selling them at 6 or 8 weeks old, you don't know what they're like, and it's just luck of the draw. And if it's luck of the draw, well, old mate down the road could want one that's fairly pushy and that, and the other fella down the other side of the road could want one that's fairly calm. They could get dead opposite pup and both pups go to waste. Whereas if you get them switched on and that, you can put them where you think they'll suit the best, and they should hopefully get the most they can out of them, and you get to pick what you like first with them. Yeah.
Speaking of, how do you pick your pup?
Number one is, people probably say it's opposite, but I say number one is how they get around their mob. I look for the style, the one that'll go around there calmly and pull up and hold his spot nicely, and maybe come and hit it on the nose a little bit and then leave it alone. And I look for a lot of style in them. And then number two, I guess you got to like the pup. If you don't like it, well, and there's something else there that's similar, well, that'll take preference. But and number three, the pup's got to like you, and away you'll go. But if you have any of them three things incorrect, well, you're not going to get along with it. You're going to clash somewhere, and if you clash, well, it's not going to work. So you've got to make sure that you want a good consistency breeding. I've had it where a dog has been pretty handy and put him over a bitch, and there's been a cracker of a dog come out of it, and there's been an average dog come out of it, or a few averages. Well, why hang on to it? You want to make sure that the other litter that you join to the same dog or something with a good bitch, well, the whole lot come out spot on, pretty similar, that you could have kept the worst one in the litter and still gone somewhere with it. So why breed the average when you can step your quality up and look for the consistency over the litter is what I look for.
Yeah.
If I have a litter and there's 4 or 5 good ones in there and there's 1 or 2 in there that won't work at all, well, I wouldn't do the litter again, and I would make sure that I don't breed with any of them pups again either, because there's a chance they can carry it on. So you've always got to make sure that you still see what the rest of them turn out with somehow down the track to know what you're breeding to.
Yeah, definitely. And while you're talking about consistency, how close is too close in line breeding for you? And what tests do you do genetically, if any, before you breed?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of CA testing. Everything's getting CA tested now, and probably going to start doing hip testing on pups, I think, just to be aware. You just got to be careful. And that's probably the main testing. I don't know, if you like something, you'll use it, as long as you've got good outcross later. I don't know about too close. I don't really look in that side too much, long as you've got good, consistent outcross that's in there somewhere and coming back into there with something completely different. So, consistency in your pups is, I believe 80% of the pup is from its mum. And, a big thing that I was told years ago from somebody, that if When I was starting with a heap of dogs, I sort of had a fair few bitches and a couple of good dogs at the time, and I was told by a fella that if your dog was, if all your bitches were a male dog, would you be using them over your bitches? And I said, probably not, and went through them. I reckon I quartered my bitches, breeding bitches, that same week, because I realised that if you wouldn't use them over your bitch, why should you use them as a dam? So yeah, you've got to look at the whole lot. And I believe 80% of your pup comes from its mother. So
Mate, you just answered about 6 or more questions in that.
yeah, you're right.
I love it. And why? 'Cause I actually agree with you. I believe the bitch has more of an influence over the litter than the dog. But why you're obviously really high there at 80%. Why so high?
I was told that, and I think it is. A lot of them pups are so much like, you'll see more of their mother in them than their father. You'll still see a bit of their father in them, don't get me wrong, but I just think there's a lot of it. I guess she's got, in the time of having a pups and that, she's got a lot of influence over them, whereas the male dog might not even meet the pup. So yeah, there's something, but there is something further back in there too from the female, because I don't work with them, and that I believe 80% of, or 90, no, I'd probably get it more, 95% of my training is individually with a little pup, and then other 5% at work and learning to work with other dogs, and that they get to go in the team, and the rest of it comes. So they've got to be able to work for themselves and think for themselves, but they do get a lot of mum experience as little tackers. So yeah.
So do you see that more in like nature and temperament, or more so in work style?
Bit of both, I think. Definitely in nature, you want to make sure your mother, well, even as a sire, you still want to make sure they've got a good
Absolutely.
nature. But yeah, nature is certainly one of the most important things with them. Yeah.
Look, you still with us there, mate?
Pardon?
Oh, sorry, I thought I lost you for a sec.
No, you're right.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, you're just talking about nature being really important there.
Yeah, I look for, I don't know, people get a litter of pups there, and the little pup that comes up and jumps all over you, and that's probably the one they'll take. But then also you get the little pup that hides in the back corner. That's the one they don't take, providing they're working right and works first. But then it comes to sort of that mediocre pup, that pup that's happy to come up to you but sit down and leave you alone. I'd rather a pup that stands off you a little bit than a pup that's all over you. I get along better with it, whereas a pup that's all over you and bouncing all over you, and that, you've got to have your space, they've got to have their space too. So
absolutely,
it's everyone's different. Yeah,
and especially at different ages as well, right? Like, something a bit younger, that pup looking back at the back of the kennel a bit is like preserving himself a bit with that one at the front. Like, in a while, a hawk or an eagle's going to take that one, or straight off the bat.
You just gotta, I guess what you look for, every pup will show you something different as in their personality, and yeah.
What about your bitches, mate? Like, you mentioned there about them, if they weren't your bitches, they were dogs, would you breed from them? What kind of criteria do they have to meet to be able to breed from them for yourself?
Well, yeah, they've got to have a good nature and that, but they've definitely got to be able to do a job for you too at work, and they've got to be able to get out there and work as good as the males, and perform good too. They've got to be clean, natural, as I said. They've got to be able to get around their mob correct, and they've got to be able to do a job for you. So yeah, if you see something that you like in it, well, providing they've got enough that you like in them and they're consistent enough, you'll go for it. But if they don't, there's no point breeding with it, is there? So otherwise you're not stepping forwards.
Yeah, so not just holding on to things for brood bitches just because of genetics, or
no,
they've got to do a job.
They've got to be able to do the job as well, and yes, they'll be out when they have their pups, and they're out when they're on season, that sort of thing. Whereas the male dog's with you all the time, but at the same time, when they're fitting in the gear, they've got to be able to do the job right as well, the females. So yeah.
Absolutely. Have you mucked around for a bit of AI at all?
No, I tried AI one a couple of years ago. That didn't work, and I haven't really done too much of it. I haven't got any semen of any dogs put away. Yeah, there is a little bit of we had a 3-legged dog at the time, one of my main dogs, and we tried to AI him, and that didn't work that time. But there's a little bit of that put away, and that's it. But I looked into it, but I don't know. I think if we bred enough with them in the time that we've had them, we should have enough of that genetics keeping on coming through. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the. Everyone's got a different opinion on it, and I respect all of them, and I like what you said there, mate. If you're bred from it, there should be enough of that around still.
Yeah, yeah. To the right bitches, to the right. So then you're going forwards. A lot of people can. I believe that's a big thing too. If you don't like the bitch that somebody wants to put to your dog, well, don't allow it to go to it, because it ain't doing your dog any favors by him producing pups to something that you don't like. So
Great advice, mate. Fantastic advice. Something that a lot of people don't think about.
well, if you were to have the bitch in your camp, would you still have her? If you would, what the reasons? Would she suit that dog? Yes, she would. We'll do it. If not, or if you wouldn't have her because of this and that, well, why should you let your genetics go over it? You can't control what you sell in the future, because once you sold it, it's up to them to do what they want with it. But if they really want to use one of yours over it, they'll come and buy a pup off you later and buy that dog that they like. So, yeah, I think it's nearly important to try not to use outcross by that. I'd like to bring a pup up. If I bring a pup up from a little pup as an outcross pup, well, I know that it suits me, and I know that there's a fair chance that the pups that it'll produce will suit me. But if I'm not playing around with that and I'm just guessing that by somebody else's opinion to it, I don't know if that's actually going to suit me, and I could breed a litter that ain't going to suit me. So you just got to be a bit careful on it. And saying that, you still got to put the risk out there at times and use outcross dogs. But yeah.
And mate, you mentioned about selling a few of your own dogs and bringing pups in. Mate, what advice would you give to someone out there wanting to purchase their first dog or a pup?
It
You
depends.
probably have had limited experience.
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is do a school of somebody's, or a couple of schools from a couple of different people, get a few different opinions, understand a dog and livestock first. If you can find a retired older dog that's been pretty handy in a team or something to work with, get that and a pup. So then you got something that you can understand and make a few mistakes with, and learn things off of, because you'll learn as much off of your dogs as they'll learn off of you. So make sure that you get yourself into gear with those older dogs too, before just having a crack with a pup and hoping that it'll work. Most important thing is a setup. Make sure you've got yards where you can have a training mob there, and that to get the things right, and play around with the pup. Connection doesn't matter. If I go and buy an older dog or a pup, doesn't matter what I get. I started in that training yard and get a connection with it and step it up. If you get, I don't know, if you go to an auction, for an example, go to Caston or something, buy the best dog in Casterton, I wouldn't turn around and take it home and cast it out in the paddock the next day and see what happens. I'll give it a fortnight of carting it around and making a mate of it and getting a connection first. So then you don't go and get a new employer and say, go out the back paddock and fix the fence. Well, they don't know where the back paddock is. You take them around the farm and show them it first. So, yeah, you've got to connect with your working dog first, make it be a mate. And then I started in a small yard on a small trainer mob, and just get a bit of a feel of how that moves around at stock, how it moves off of you, how it works with you, get it understanding a few commands, and go through your steps and step it up, and therefore you'll get a connection with the dog. If it's got any mistakes in it or bad habits from somebody else or something prior, you can fix them up along the way. But if you put it straight out in the deep end and give it a go, and they've got a couple of bad habits, well, they're going to continue on with it, aren't they? So, yeah, I believe connection is the most important thing with your dogs.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree, mate. And I love how much detail you've gone into, and then introducing it back into like the work scenario as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
mate, well, we're going to go into trialing in a sec, but most of the people that you've probably given that advice to just then are in the livestock industry more so than the trialing world and the hobbies. Like, mate, is there a message you'd like to get out into the livestock industry?
Well, I guess biggest thing is when a dog's out there, always talk to the handler of the dog first and see where they want you, on the livestock, or if they want you there or not. A lot of people, somebody be out working their dogs in a vehicle, and somebody will come along to help them. They'll just go straight around behind the sheep and start pushing them or something. And too much of a risk with running a dog over or something like that, something going wrong or getting in the road of a dog. So I'm a big believer of always see where they want you on the livestock first, the one that's got their dogs out there first, and go from there. So then you're all on the same page. Stock and people, everybody's got a plan when they go around a mob of stock. But if there's more people out there than one, there's quite often more plans than one. So you've got to communicate and go out together as a group and work out the best ways. So I think always, if there's dogs out there, always rely on the dog. Try and let the dog do the most they can because they know the most if it's done right. If you got someone new that's a bit green coming out into it and unexperienced, ask the more experienced person, tell them where their dog's at in life and where they think, they'll tell you where to start it. And if they think it's not ready, they'll start it earlier. And if it ends up being ready, well, we can always go back to that step later. So you just got to, try and understand where the dog's at and where you want to be. Not everything with dogs too. If it's just in stock general, a lot of people are all trying to get them in a yard and everybody's either in the same spot or all in complete different spots in the wrong ways. So you've got to work together and
Actually, it's actually a really valid point, mate, because even just if you're on that same page from day dot, I suppose that can prevent a few arguments later in the day when things get a bit heated, right? Days get longer, get drawn out.
I'm a big believer in when you're bringing stock into yards from out in the paddock or something too, you might go up and pick them, collect them all in the paddock and start bringing them across, and everything's going good out in the paddock, but when you're getting close to the yards, things start going wrong. So why not out in the paddock try and poke them between two different trees or something, pretend that's your yard. So then you get a bit of practice at it. Try and, I don't know, poke them over a track and then back over or something, but don't let them get to a different track or something. Always try and place them in different spots on the way in so you can learn to spear them and put them where you want to. So therefore, when you get them to the yards, you're used to changing the direction, whereas a lot of people will go out there, everything's going good, they'll sit back and stay way off them, everything's fine. They'll get to the yards and go, oh, we've got to turn them and put them in there. Well, then everything revs up and they start breaking and everything goes different directions and splitting and it all goes the wrong way. So, always try and, stretch a mob out in the paddock or try and mob them up tight or try and change the direction of them a little bit or that sort of thing. So therefore you slow them down out there or speed them up, whatever you have to do. Try different things. So therefore, when you get them to the yard, you've got more opportunity of mustering the whole lot. And if you can muster the whole lot, you're there. But if you're letting things get away, they'll get away the next time and they'll take more mates with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have mentioned trialing a few times. How much trialing have you done? Sort of like when did you start and what type of trialing mostly?
Mainly yard dog trialing. I've done a few utility trials and odd 3 sheep trial, but mainly yard dog trialing. I was brought up as a kid going to yard dog trials. We used to always go to the Nationals, the Australian every year. That was our holiday. We get pulled out of school and taken to the Australian every year, and I loved it. And
it's cool.
Always trialled in South Australia and that. And I think as young as you can get out there and give it a go, the better it is. The more experience you get under your belt, and it's good fun. So I really enjoy the trialling side of it's my sport. I've played a little bit of footy and that sort of thing, but dog trialing is my sport. That's my look forward to doing stuff with the dogs, and there's different ways of it. There's a lot of different opinions. I think that the trialing, is a very good sport. It's just got to be it is probably going a little bit on the pushier side. The trialing, everyone wants everything in a rush and time limit. I think, I like a slow, calm, steady, neat flow, and I really do enjoy it though.
Why do you enjoy it, mate? What makes a good trial for you?
I think just everybody getting around within a reason. I think we all get to sit and see different dogs. It's good because it's your turn. No one can interfere. You go out and do your own fun, and it's your time with your dog, and it's your time for other people to see and see what you got too, and it's your time to see other dogs and see what's about too. And I think it's still based on the farm. I actually base my farm work on trialing more so than me trialing on farm work. So I think it's very, very good to. It just makes you stand in the same, put them where you want them, and makes you just polish off your dogs that little bit more and get that bit better connection with them, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And you've mentioned the Australian a couple of times there. Do you have a favourite trial to attend?
I like them all. I don't think there's a favourite. There's trial's a trial. If it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not. But trial's a trial. It's all. Every course is different. That's the good thing about it. It is different. We don't want them all the same. But there's certainly there's no favourite. It's just I enjoy them all. Yeah.
That's awesome, mate. And I was about to sneeze and I held it in and I coughed instead. Mate, have you got a favourite moment or best achievement or something, most memorable moment for yourself out on the trial ground?
I don't know. I won the Improver when I was in 2006 down at Casterton, so I was about 14.
Oh, wow.
At the Australian, that was probably one of my first bigger ones. I got second in the next bigger one would have probably been got to represent South Australia a couple of times. Awesome. Another good one was I think I got 11th in the Australian up at Armidale in 2019 or 20, and then in 2021, get it right. And then I got another good one. I got second in the state championships last year with a dog that I trained, and so I've had a few good achievements, but at the same time, every child's been good fun, and you always learn from them and learn different things and learn off of others, and
Mate, you mentioned winning an Improver at 14 there. Do you get any nerves?
I did get a few nerves back then, and the old man was like, "You'll be right," and push me along. But these days, I don't get too many nerves. You just go out there and work your dog the way it is, as you would at home, and nerves disappear, and dogs play off of it. So if you can get rid of the nerves and enjoy it and relax out there, they'll relax. But if you're nervous and tensed up, they'll be tensed up and generally do something silly that'll embarrass you a lot more. It's a real good mind game because it's not just you, it's not just the dog, it's the animals, the sheep as well. So you've got to keep your mind right to keep your dog's mind right to keep the sheep's mind right. So it's the whole way around, and you've always got to be thinking of not the pen you're coming into, it's the pen afterwards that you're leaving as well. So then you're always getting around and further. Whereas if you're always thinking about just trying to get them in, you're not setting yourself up for the next one. So it's all a pattern that you got to achieve and think the whole way around. Yeah.
And we always hear, work dogs don't make trial dogs and vice versa. What are your thoughts on that?
I think if they're brought up right and your work's done right, I think they can work both exactly the same. It's just the experience is the biggest thing. If your dogs are only trialing and that's it, well, yes, they might not make as good as work dogs because they haven't had the experience. If your dogs are only working and not having a go at the trialing and you're not having experience yourself, well, yes, they probably won't be good at that, or yourselves won't be. But if you can have a bit of experience and a bit of fun with both and give it a go, and yes, it won't happen overnight, but when you get there, it's good feeling. It's good fun to be able to go and muster a paddock or pen up a shearing shed or educate livestock or and still win a trial with the same dog. You know, you should be able to pull them out of the box and out of the dog cage and put them on to whatever mob you want and do whatever job you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, we touched a bit earlier there, not long ago, about the message you want to put in the livestock industry. How about young people out there that may be thinking about a career in the livestock industry, but kind of not sold on it? A bloke that's done, a lot of Ks on all different stock around the country. What advice can you give those young people?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to try and do school and understand them as much as you can. There's help out there to do it. And also, I think take the opportunity. I think there's so many good handlers out there that go off and muster and do things on their own. Yes, on their own is good, but why can't we be taking a junior person with us at times and doing a job with it, even if they're not doing the job themselves? They're watching and learning and understanding and listening to us, so therefore they can understand a little bit before they have a go, as well as get them home and let them play around with the dog too afterwards or before work and that sort of thing. But there's no reason why when you go and muster a paddock or something, you can't take someone with you. I think it's probably the most important thing, more so than, whereas a lot of people put somebody else on a bike or in another vehicle or something. Why not sit them next to you and go out and explain things to them first, so then you can say, this is why I do this is why I do that, this will work, this won't work. Therefore, that when they come out and have a go themselves out, they're knowing what you want and they'll work with you and away you'll go. But a lot of people put a young person, or not just young, a new person out on the job and send them one way and they go the other way and wonder why it won't work. Well, you've got to nearly do the job with them first and show them a few things and show them what you know and let them work with you and pick it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice there, mate. So, and I'm taking it that if there was anyone out there that wanted to touch base with you, mate, to get some advice, that maybe not sold if the industry's for them or not, you'd be open to them making contact with yourself for a chat?
Yep, definitely. Barkhill Peters Working Dogs Schools, is probably the best way to get in contact. And we're there we probably need to put a few more promotional days, more so than schools too, that you can just sit and watch and have experience more so than coming and learning at a school and feeling the pressure. But yeah, there's certainly options to do things like that too.
Yeah.
Very cool. Mate, is there someone that you'd like to see us sit down and have a chat with on Dog Talk?
I don't know who you've actually got and who you haven't got.
And the list is big now. Sometimes I've got to double check myself.
Who have you got? I guess there's plenty of handlers out there and that are very good, and I guess the ones I've learnt off mainly, I've learned off lots of people, but the main ones I'll probably learn off is Neil and Helen McDonald, and there was a bloke by the name of Matt Webb years ago that went out of stock, out of dogs, but there was and Dad that were the main ones that I really come up learning off of. And then I picked other things up and learnt off of everyone I can and talking to them at trials and that sort of thing. There's there's lots of people out there. Chris Stapleton, Gary White, done one of Gary White's schools. Did a bit with Greg Prince years ago. He was a true champion that passed away. But there's and a lot with Joe Spicer too in the later days I have. There's just heaps of handlers and that out there. I reckon good thing would be to go to the Australian one day and see the better handlers and talk to them all.
Yeah.
I reckon that's a great idea, mate.
Yeah.
Might have to, where are we next year? WA.
I'm booking in to go.
Oh, there you go. Jesus. Mate.
We'll make a holiday out of it, my plan.
Yeah.
Mate, was there a question that stood out to you tonight? There were a few there. There's only a couple we put names to. There were a few there from people that didn't want their names mentioned, which is okay. And they will win a bag Enduro high-G food for working dogs with Real Kangaroo Meat.
I don't know. Actually, I was too. I actually can't think back on what they were. I just was.
That's all right.
The question.
There was one about importance of importance of going to different areas and in the country to handle stock and
different types of stock.
Yeah, different operations. Then there was one about how do you go about putting a sit or a stop on a strong dog that fights you all the time.
Yeah.
And then there was also one about line breeding and genetic testing.
Yeah, probably the first one, I think, with the about where do you go, like make sure you get yourself out there and have a go at different opportunities. And if you can swap from different stock, from sheep to cattle to goats to different things, and swap from shed work to paddock work and a bit of all sorts, that's what makes your dogs get better and gets yourself better and gets your experience up there. And I think that's probably the better one.
Yeah, beautiful. That was Charles Williams. So
got his details. Yeah. So congratulations, Charles. Bag of Enduro coming your way. And Pete, for jumping on tonight, there's a bag of Enduro coming your way as well, mate.
Thank you. Yep. The dogs will love it.
Absolutely. Mate, thanks for your time tonight, but you're not going to get away just that quick yet.
Last question as always. Would you rather fight one duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks, and why?
Well, what was that? Sorry.
One duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks?
I'd probably take the dog on the size of the horse, I reckon.
Take a dog on the size of a horse. That's even better. Mate, thank you very much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it. I know you're extremely busy there. So thanks for jumping online with us and having a chat.
No worries. Thank you very much for inviting me to it, and thank you everybody else. Hope you all get something out of it.
No problem, mate. And to everyone that tuned in and for your questions, thank you tonight, and everyone listening back. And please remember, we learn every day, and the day we stop learning from each other will be a sad one.
Thank you.